Hello, Chillify channel creator. I am ready. In my memory, there was a summer that seemed to stretch on forever. It was the summer of endless cicada songs, of cool mung bean ice cream melting on my tongue, and of a boy named Ethan. I was 7 that year, and he was 10. Our families were neighbors, separated by a fence overgrown with bougainvillea. I was the cherished little princess of my family, while he was the eldest son of the Shen family, more mature and composed than his peers. My parents often joked that Ethan wasn't like a child at all, but more like a little old man, always acting grown-up. Yet, that little old man reserved all his patience and gentleness for a crybaby like me. I remember those afternoons when he would climb over the fence, bringing 2 ice creams, one for me, one for him. We'd sit beneath the ancient phoenix tree in my backyard, our legs dangling in the air, listening to the cicadas and sharing our ice cream. He didn't talk much, just sat silently beside me, his gaze always fixed on me. When I was bullied at school, he would be the first to step in and protect me. When I broke Mom's favorite vase and cried hysterically from fear, he would take my hand, lead me to Mom, and say, "It's my fault. Don't scold Luna." Luna Liu was my name, but in his mouth it always became the endearing Lulu. The summer I turned 10 was also the last summer we spent together. Underneath our familiar phoenix tree, perhaps a child's intuition can sometimes be frighteningly accurate. I felt a vague unease thinking that he was about to go to middle school and wouldn't have as much time to play with me anymore. "Will you stop playing with me once you grow up?" I blurted out, following my thoughts. Ethan remained silent for a long moment, the setting sun filtering through the leaves, casting golden streaks on his soft hair. He turned to look at me, his dark eyes unusually serious. "Lulu, don't be afraid," he said, his young voice surprisingly firm. "No matter how old I get, I promise to always be by your side. When we grow up, I'll definitely marry you. That way, we'll be together forever." He took out a small, clumsily carved wooden bird from his pocket, but one could see the immense effort put into it. He placed it in my palm. "This is our promise. You must keep it safe. Don't forget me, wait for me to grow up, and I will definitely marry you." "Okay, I'll wait for you." I squeezed the wooden bird, my young heart fluttering. I believed his words, believed unconditionally. For a 10-year-old child, a promise was the entire world. But I never imagined that just months after that promise was made, my world would come crashing down. One morning, I woke up and no longer heard the familiar sounds from next door. The bougainvillea-covered fence was still there, but his bedroom window was silently shut. I ran over, calling, "Ethan," until my voice was hoarse, but no one answered. My mother stroked my head and sighed. "The Shen family is gone, dear. I heard their company went bankrupt and they had to sell their house and move elsewhere." "Where did they go? Why didn't he say a word to me?" Tears streamed down my face. Mom could only shake her head. "They left in such a hurry. No one knows where they went." From that day on, Ethan vanished from my life like smoke, no letter, no phone call, no news. The only things he left behind were the small wooden bird and a promise abandoned in the summer of that year, along with the words, "Don't forget me." 15 years passed. I was now 25, an interior designer with a budding reputation. I had learned to be independent, to be strong, to hide all my vulnerable emotions deep inside. My friends called me successful, cool, and rational. But only I knew that deep in my heart, there was still a soft spot for the boy from all those years ago. The wooden bird still rested in my jewelry box, aged by time but never forgot. I had tried to find him once, but in such a vast world, searching for someone without any contact information was like looking for a needle in a haystack. Gradually, I gave up. Perhaps that childhood promise was just a childish joke. Perhaps he had long forgotten the crybaby neighbor girl, but I hadn't. "Lulu, you have a blind date this weekend," my mother said over the phone, her tone leaving no room for refusal. "He's the son of your father's business partner. His name is Ethan Shen, and he just returned from abroad, very talented and courteous. Your father and I have seen his picture. He's perfect for you." The name Ethan Shen struck my chest like a hammer blow. My heart skipped a beat. Is it him? Could it be such a coincidence? But then I mocked myself. How many people in this world share the same name? Moreover, my Ethan's family went bankrupt all those years ago. How could he be a privileged young man who just returned from studying abroad, the son of my father's major business partner? Certainly not. "So I'm not going," I replied mechanically. "You asterisk have asterisk to go?" my mother snapped. How long do you plan to stay single? Your father has already promised Chairman Shen. If you don't go, how can your parents face them? It's just one meeting. If it doesn't work out, it doesn't work out. What do you have to lose? After a long argument, I finally surrendered. I agreed, but there wasn't a ripple of emotion in my heart. For me, this was just a formal meeting to satisfy my parents. I would go, sit for a while, exchange a few pleasantries, and then leave, putting an end to everything. I had no idea that this fated blind date would propel the wheel of my destiny into a trajectory I could never have imagined. The restaurant my mother chose was on the top floor of a 5-star hotel, offering panoramic views of the city at night. I arrived on time, wearing a simple yet elegant business dress and light makeup. For me, this wasn't a date but an unwelcome business meeting. The man named Ethan Shen had already arrived. He sat with his back to me, next to the colossal glass window, his back straight, broad shoulders encased in a perfectly tailored suit, exuding an overwhelming aura of superiority. Just his silhouette was enough to create an invisible distance. I took a deep breath, walked over, and spoke in the most professional and polite tone I could manage. "Excuse me, are you Mr. Shen? I am Luna Liu." The man turned, and in that moment, time seemed to freeze. His face was undeniably striking. A high, straight nose, thin, almost indifferent lips, and especially his eyes. Those eyes were as deep as the ocean, calm yet possessing a power that could sweep everything away. They were sharp, profound, carrying a worldliness and authority that a 28-year-old man shouldn't possess. There was absolutely no trace of the warm, skinny boy from my memory. It certainly wasn't the boy from all those years ago. My fluttering heart instantly turned cold. I was right. It was just a ridiculous coincidence. How could my Ethan become this man? A man who, with just a glance, you knew stood at the pinnacle of the pyramid, accustomed to giving orders and manipulating everything. "Miss Liu, please sit." He politely pulled out a chair for me. His voice was deep, warm, and magnetic. "I am Ethan Shen." Throughout the meal, the atmosphere was exactly as I predicted, bland and utterly formal. He asked a few questions about my work. I answered a few about his career. Everything was perfect, polite, but distant. I could feel him observing me meticulously. But that gaze wasn't like a man's curiosity towards a blind date, it was more like a hunter assessing his prey. This made me slightly uncomfortable. I was about to find an excuse to end this insipid meeting when he suddenly spoke, cutting straight to the chase. "Miss Liu, I believe both you and I understand the purpose of today's meeting. Neither of us is keen on being set up by our families, but we also can't openly defy them." I raised an eyebrow, a little surprised by his bluntness. "Does Mr. Shen have a brilliant idea?" He pushed a thin folder towards me. On the cover were just 4 words, "Cooperation Agreement." I frowned, looking at him, then at the folder. "This is a marriage contract," he stated casually, as if discussing a billion-dollar business deal. "We will be married in name for 1 year. During this year, we will live together to appease our families. I will provide you with a comfortable material life and will not interfere with your work or personal relationships. In return, you only need to play the part of a perfect wife in front of outsiders. After 1 year, we will divorce amicably. All terms, details, and your rights are clearly stipulated in the contract. You will suffer no disadvantages." I was utterly stunned. I had met many people, but never anyone so audacious and arrogant as to turn marriage into a contract. "Mr. Shen, don't you think this is preposterous?" I tried to remain calm. He took a sip of wine, his bottomless eyes fixed on me. "Preposterous, perhaps, but the most effective solution. I know you are an independent woman with your own career. You don't want to be tied down by a loveless marriage. I feel the same, but the pressure from our families is real. Instead of wasting time on more pointless blind dates, why not resolve the issue once and for all?" He paused, then continued. These words seemed to strike a chord with me. "I understand you might feel I'm a stranger. This proposal is sudden and unbelievable. That's precisely why I've drawn up this contract. Everything is clearly stipulated in black and white. It will be your assurance that this is purely a fair transaction, with no emotional ties whatsoever." His words were indeed very convincing, logical, precise, and directly addressed my long-standing dilemma. Being pressured by my parents to marry had exhausted me. The idea of a temporary, clearly defined contractual marriage seemed like a perfect, albeit temporary, escape. I would have a year of peace to focus on my career, undisturbed. Why me? I asked the last question. Given your conditions, countless women would be willing to sign this contract. He looked at me, a flicker of complex emotion in his eyes, but it vanished too quickly, making me wonder if I'd imagined it. Because you are the most suitable, he replied vaguely. My parents are very pleased with you, and I believe you are an intelligent and discreet partner. I picked up the folder. It felt heavy in my hands, a crazy decision, a gamble with a stranger who bore a painfully familiar name. But perhaps he was right. This was the best way to escape my current situation. I'll think about it, I said, neither committing nor refusing. Ethan nodded slightly, as if he had anticipated my answer. I'll await your response. Miss Liu left the restaurant, the night wind blowing on my face, making me a little clearer-headed. I looked back at the man still sitting by the window, his silhouette solitary but resolute. Though my rationality screamed that this was a dangerous trap, deep down, a faint voice urged, just try it once. Perhaps it was because he bore the name Ethan Shen. Or perhaps I was simply too tired of waiting for a ghost that would never return and wanted to force myself to move on in the most drastic way possible. I lost sleep that entire night. Ethan's contract lay still on my desk, but every word danced in my mind. My rationality screamed that this was a crazy act, putting myself into a complicated and unpredictable situation. But after some struggle, my heart leaned towards the contract. Perhaps he was right. This was the most effective solution. 1 year, just 1 year, and I would have the peace I desired. My parents would be satisfied, and I could end the endless string of forced blind dates. After a year, we'd go our separate ways, owing nothing to each other. A fair transaction. The next morning, with dark circles under my eyes, I called Ethan. Mr. Shen, I agree. There was silence on the other end for a few seconds, then his familiar calm voice spoke. Very well. This afternoon at 3 p.m., my assistant will pick you up to register our marriage. As for the shared house, it's ready. You can move in any time. He spoke quickly and concisely, without any superfluous emotion, as if arranging a meeting. His decisiveness and efficiency were a bit overwhelming, but also gave me a strange sense of security. He seemed to have calculated everything, and just like that, in one afternoon, I, Luna Liu, became the wife of a man I had met only once, a legal wife on paper. The house he had prepared was a luxurious, modern, and sterile penthouse duplex in the most exclusive area of the city center. Everything was arranged perfectly in a minimalist style, with black and gray as the dominant colors. It was exactly like its owner, orderly, distant, and exuding an aura of power. Your room is on the left, mine on the right, with common areas in between. You're free to use anything in the house. If you need to change anything about the design, feel free. You're the expert after all, he said as he led me on a tour of the house. I nodded, trying to hide my surprise. The house was too grand, too extravagant for what I had imagined for a temporary shared life. The first few days of living together passed with unusual tranquility. We were more like polite roommates than a married couple. He was busy with work, often leaving early and returning late. I also had my own projects. We rarely had dinner together. Our conversations were limited to a few polite exchanges in the morning. But gradually, I began to notice strange things. Every morning, a healthy breakfast portion, exactly to my taste, would be ready on the dining table. The refrigerator was always stocked with the yogurts and fruits I liked. When I worked late, he would quietly place a warm glass of milk on my desk without saying a word. Once, when I had a cold, I woke up in the middle of the night to find medicine and a warm glass of water on my nightstand. Of course, these actions weren't in the contract. His care was subtle, silent, not overtly expressed but present everywhere. It was like a drizzle, not enough to soak one's clothes, but slowly seeping deep into the earth. I started to feel confused. He had clearly stated this was just a transaction, without emotion. So why was he treating me so well? Even knowing it was a pretense, I almost believed it was real. One weekend evening, as I was sketching designs in the living room, he returned, a faint scent of alcohol clinging to him. Perhaps he had just returned from a social event. Instead of going straight to his room, he sat on the sofa opposite me. "Still working?" he asked, his voice slightly tired. "Almost done," I replied without looking up. I didn't want him to see my bewildered expression. The space fell silent. I could feel his gaze fixed on me. It was no longer the sharp gaze of a hunter, but something deeper and more complex. "Luna," he suddenly called my name, not Miss Liu, as usual. My heart gave a little flutter. I looked up, meeting his eyes. Under the warm yellow light, the usual coldness and distance on his face seemed to have melted away somewhat, revealing a hidden tenderness. "The meals I've been preparing, do they suit your taste?" I was stunned. "Thank you, but you're going to too much trouble." He nodded slightly. "No trouble at all, as long as you like it." "Why?" I blurted out. "Why are you doing all this? It's not in the contract." Ethan looked at me, his eyes so deep they seemed to want to pierce my soul. He remained silent for a long moment, then spoke in a deep, hoarse voice. "Because you are my wife. Even if it's only in name, I have a responsibility to take care of you." A perfect answer without any loopholes, but somehow I felt it wasn't the whole truth. There was something he was hiding, his care for me. It went far beyond the boundaries of responsibility. It was strangely genuine and warm. That night I was sleepless once again, but this time it wasn't because of the contract, but because of the man named Ethan Shen. He was like an enigma. The more I interacted with him, the more curious I became, the more I wanted to solve him. I told myself I had to stay rational. I had to remember this was just a fake marriage. But my heart seemed to have already begun to stir at his gentle, extra-contractual actions. Our lives continued in that sweet contradiction. By day, we were distant partners, respecting each other's personal space. By night, he would become a responsible, nominal husband, caring for me silently and attentively. My rationality constantly warned me that all of this was just part of the agreement, that his kindness was probably just the habit of a polite gentleman. But my heart was a traitor. It refused to obey the commands of reason, and little by little, became immersed in his gentleness. I started to get used to having him around, used to waking up each morning to a hot meal on the table, used to a warm glass of milk waiting for me whenever I worked late. That night, exhausted, I fell asleep at my desk. I dreamed of us as children walking to school together, he right behind me. He said, "Lulu, don't forget me, I'll marry you when we grow up." I smiled and nodded, but when I turned around, he was gone. I frantically searched, running around, but couldn't find him. Helpless, I yelled, "Ethan, my memory is really bad. Come out now or I'll forget you. See how bad my memory is? If you don't come out, I'll forget you." "You know my memory isn't good. Why aren't you here yet?" When I startled awake and opened my eyes, I saw him holding a glass of water beside me. He said he heard me scream and came to check. "It was just a nightmare. Go back to bed and sleep. I'll be here next to you. Don't worry, I'll leave as soon as you're asleep," he said, handing me the water. In that moment, I almost hugged him. Who would have thought all his gestures were just like that boy's? This stirring grew even clearer at the Shen Group anniversary gala. As per the contract, I had to attend with him as Mrs. Shen. It was our first public appearance together. As I descended the staircase in the sapphire blue gown he had prepared, I saw his gaze halt for a moment. A flicker of surprise and admiration flashed in his deep eyes. Though only for a brief moment, it was enough to make my heart race. Throughout the party, he held my hand tightly. His hand was large and warm, providing a strangely secure feeling. He introduced me to his partners, his voice filled with pride. "This is my wife, Luna." The words, "my wife," spoken so naturally and intimately, gave me the illusion that we truly were a devoted couple. I was almost convinced by that illusion until she appeared. A beautiful girl in a pristine white dress, with long, lightly curled hair, a delicate face, and a smile as sweet as candy. She walked up to us, her gaze not on me at all but fixed solely on Ethan, her voice as clear as silver bells. "Ethan, you're finally back." Ethan frowned slightly when he saw her, but the coldness in his eyes quickly dissipated. He nodded. "Kathy, you're here too? I've been back for a week, and I heard you were busy, so I didn't dare disturb you." The girl, Kathy Lamb, said, her tones slightly sulky but utterly natural, as if it were her exclusive privilege. It was only then that she pretended to notice my existence. Her gaze flickered over our clasped hands, a sharp glint passing through, quickly hidden behind a friendly smile. "This is Luna, my wife," Ethan introduced. His voice was calm, but I felt his hand gently squeeze mine. "Hello, Mrs. Shen," Kathy Lamb smiled at me, a perfect, flawless smile. "I'm Kathy Lamb, Ethan's childhood friend from abroad. I was by his side during his most difficult years. We've known each other for over 10 years. a seemingly harmless introduction, but it felt like a knife plunging straight into my heart. Childhood friends for 10 years, the most difficult years. Each word was like a blunt affirmation of her irreplaceable position in Ethan's life. It reminded me that I was merely an afterthought, a nominal wife who came about through a transaction, while she was the one who had weathered storms with him, the one who understood him best. My hand, still clasped by his, suddenly went cold, and the smile on my lips became rigid. "Hello, Miss Lamb," I replied politely. For the rest of the party, Kathy Lamb constantly found ways to stand by Ethan's side. She recounted stories from their past, memories that only the two of them shared. She naturally picked food for him, adjusted his tie. Such intimate gestures as if I didn't exist at all. And Ethan, he didn't refuse. He maintained a polite demeanor, but his tolerance of Kathy's actions, in my eyes, turned into tacit acknowledgement. The illusion of a devoted couple shattered into pieces. I was dragged back to the harsh reality of the contract. Who was I to be jealous? What right did I have to be upset? On the way home, the atmosphere in the car was suffocatingly heavy. He seemed to notice my silence. "What's wrong?" he asked. "Nothing." I turned my face to the window, my voice cold. "Just a little tired." He didn't ask anything further. That night, I voluntarily slept in the guest room. I needed my own space to sort out my chaotic emotions. I told myself I had to sober up. Ethan had his childhood friend, his past. I shouldn't and wasn't allowed to step into that world. But as I curled up in bed, trying to force myself to sleep, the bedroom door quietly opened. Ethan walked in, holding a warm glass of milk as usual. "Are you feeling unwell?" He stood by the bed, his low voice carrying an unconcealed worry. I didn't answer, just pretended to be sound asleep. He stood there for a long moment, then placed the milk on the nightstand and quietly left. Hearing the door close, I opened my eyes. Tears had been falling unnoticed, soaking my pillow. I had told myself not to fall for him, but my heart was no longer listening. And now, it was throbbing fiercely. Since that party, an invisible but chilling wall had been erected between Ethan and me. I reverted to my role in the contract, a professional partner, a wife in name only. I told myself that Ethan treated me well probably because he was a responsible man. His affections, his past, all belonged to Kathy. I was just a passerby, a temporary solution to his problem. Kathy, on the other hand, increasingly asserted her role as mistress of the house. She frequently came to our penthouse. Every action, every word was like a needle piercing my bleeding heart. "Luna, you and Ethan got married so quickly, you probably haven't had much time to get to know each other. It's not like me and him. For over 10 years, I've known his smallest habits by heart." I just listened in silence, the smile on my lips fading. I knew she was provoking me, staking her claim, and I had no right to refute her, because everything she said was true. The man I was falling for was actually such a stranger. Ethan seemed oblivious to the subtle war between the two women. His silence, in my eyes, was tacit agreement, a favoritism towards the girl who had been with him through his difficult years. My breaking point came on a rainy afternoon. I came home earlier than usual, and the scene in the living room froze me. Kathy Lamb was sitting on Ethan's lap, her arms wrapped tightly around his neck, sobbing uncontrollably. And he was embracing her, gently patting her trembling back. "Ethan, I'm so scared. My dad's forcing me on another blind date. I just want to be with you." Kathy's voice was tearful, pitiful. My heart felt like it was being squeezed. I quietly backed away, making no sound, then turned into my room and slammed the door shut. I didn't want to hear Ethan's answer. I was afraid that answer would be the final blow, killing the last fragile bit of hope within me. That night, he didn't come to our bedroom. I sat alone in the dark, contradictions tearing at my heart. Why did he treat me so well? Preparing breakfast, buying the exact yogurt I liked, placing a warm glass of milk on my table every night. Those actions were completely inconsistent with a cold, contractual husband. But then he tolerated Kathy, held her in his arms. This contradiction ignited a crazy, yet intense, flicker of doubt in my mind. The name Ethan Shen, his subtle care for every small detail of my habits. Could it be that he was the boy from all those years ago? No, I shook my head, scoffing at my own thoughts. If he was my Ethan, why wouldn't he recognize me? Why would he need a contract? But once doubt takes root, it grows relentlessly. I needed an answer. Before giving up completely, I had to know the truth. For the first time, I stepped into his study. It was his private domain. I had never intended to intrude. The room was as tidy and cold as its owner. My eyes swept around and stopped at an exquisite wooden box on the bookshelf. Driven by intuition, I approached it and opened it. Inside were not documents, but a thick dossier. The first words that struck me were, "Investigation report on Luna Liu." My heart stopped. I trembled as I turned each page. It was my entire life over the past 15 years. From elementary school, middle school, high school, university to my current job. My habits, preferences, relationships, everything was recorded in terrifying detail. He had investigated me. He had searched for me. And then on the last page, I saw it. Tucked within the dossier was a faded, yellowed photograph. The photo showed a little girl and a boy sitting under a phoenix tree, holding ice cream. It was me and him that year. Beneath the documents, another object lay silently. An exquisitely carved wooden bird, much larger and more perfect than the clumsy one I still kept. The truth hit me like a lightning bolt. He was my Ethan. He was the boy from all those years ago who had promised to marry me. He had searched for me all these years. He knew exactly who I was from the very first blind date. But why? Why didn't he say anything? Why did he use a contract to bind me? Why did he allow Kathy to exist between us? A chill ran down my spine. I suddenly understood. He searched for me perhaps only because of that old promise. He married me perhaps only out of responsibility. He didn't love me. His love, his tenderness, was all for the girl who had weathered storms with him, Kathy Lamb. He was afraid I would recognize him, afraid I would harbor illusions. That's why he used that cold contract to clearly delineate boundaries. The pain and disappointment were 1,000 times greater than when I thought he was a stranger. The man I had waited 15 years for, I had finally found, but he no longer needed my love. Like a soul lost, I walked back to my room. As I opened the door, I ran right into him outside my room. He reeked of strong alcohol mixed with a hint of his perfume. Seeing me in the room, his face showed a hint of confusion. "Why are you in my room?" "No, nothing. I just wanted to borrow something from you, so I came in to look. You're drunk, you should rest." "Borrow something?" he growled, pulling me against the wall. His hands braced against the wall, trapping me between his solid chest. "So, did you find it?" He leaned down, whispering in my ear, making me blush. Just as I was about to answer, he leaned down and kissed me, a burning, possessive kiss. I resisted, but it was no match for him. "Stop, Ethan, do you know who I am?" My eyes red, I asked him. "I know, my wife, Lulu." He looked directly into my eyes and said. Then he continued to kiss me, and as soon as I heard, "Lulu," I remembered the boy from all those years ago. Unconsciously, I hugged him and kissed him back. I no longer cared about anything else, regardless of fate. He slowly lifted me onto the bed. The moment he entered me, I involuntarily moaned. He thrust gently, then with increasing speed. I tried not to make that embarrassing sound, but he became even more aggressive. He leaned down and whispered in my ear, "Your moans are beautiful. They excite me." The more I suppressed, the faster he went until I couldn't bear it anymore. "Oh, please, please be gentle, Ethan. It hurts too much." "All right, anything for you. I'm sorry if I scared you." He leaned down to kiss me and slowed his pace, yet it matched my gasping breaths with every rhythm. I don't know how long I slept, but I drifted off in his arms. Waking early, seeing him still asleep, I returned to my own room. That morning, he acted as if nothing had happened, which made me feel deeply uncomfortable and a little sad. One day, while shopping, I unexpectedly saw 2 children sharing an ice cream, reminding me of the boy from all those years ago. Worse, I remembered the night I went into his room. He clearly knew me from before, but perhaps a promise was just a promise. After a year, we'd go our separate ways, especially since he had a childhood friend. Just as I was sinking into these aimless, despairing thoughts, my body began to show strange symptoms. I felt tired and nauseous. I quickly bought a pregnancy test, and it showed 2 bright red lines. I was pregnant. This baby came like a cruel twist of fate. What was I supposed to do? Use this baby to hold onto a man who didn't love me, to make him responsible, to make him awkward with the woman he loved. No, I couldn't do that. I would leave. I would raise the child on my own. I would give him back his freedom so he could be happy with the woman he truly loved. I rushed to his company, not to tell him, but to place the divorce papers on his desk, to end everything. But perhaps that very urgency made me lose my guard. As I was turning at an intersection, a motorcycle suddenly sped out of an alley, crashing into the side of my car. A violent impact sent my head slamming into the steering wheel. Everything before my eyes went dark. In a daze, the first thing I thought of was the baby in my womb. Instinctively, I trembling picked up my phone and dialed Ethan's number. It rang a few times, and then someone answered on the other end. But the voice that spoke was not the warm, deep one I longed for. "Hello, who is this?" It was Kathy's voice. "Ethan, where's Ethan?" I whispered, my lower abdomen beginning to cramp. "Ethan is showering," Kathy replied casually. "Is there anything, Mrs. Shen?" Those words were like a bucket of cold water poured directly over me. All my last hopes shattered into pieces. I hung up, tears streaming down my face, my stomach hurting more and more. I was desperate in both physical and emotional agony. I forced open the car door myself. Dragging my aching body and broken heart, I stumbled away into the pouring rain. I had to escape this place, escape him, escape her, escape all this pain. The cold night rain lashed at my skin, but it couldn't compare to the chill in my heart. I didn't know where I was dragging myself. In my head, there was only one thought: I have to go, I have to leave this city, leave Ethan. With every step, the pain from my lower abdomen flared, reminding me of the tiny life within me. It was this life that gave me the last bit of strength not to collapse. I couldn't die, I had to live for my child. In my desperation, I remembered Anna, my only close friend from university. She was a freelance writer, living in a quiet seaside town hundreds of kilometers away, a place Ethan would never think of. Using my remaining strength, I hailed a taxi to the bus station, bought a ticket for an overnight bus, and huddled in a secluded corner, turning off my phone, cutting off all contact with my old world. A new life began in a small apartment Anna helped me rent. It was peaceful here, without skyscrapers, without corporate battles, and most importantly, without Ethan and Kathy. I lived a reclusive life, spending my days caring for my growing belly, occasionally taking on online design jobs to make ends meet. Anna looked at me with pity. "Lulu, are you going to hide forever? Ethan is turning the whole city upside down looking for you." I just smiled sadly. Looking for me? Perhaps to make me sign the divorce papers I hadn't yet given him. Or worse, if he knew I was pregnant, he would surely make me deal with this unwanted pregnancy. I didn't dare consider the possibility that he was looking for me because he was worried about me. The truth I discovered in his study, coupled with the sight of him holding Kathy, had killed all my illusions. Why would he be looking for me anyway? I mumbled, my hand unconsciously stroking my belly. He already has the person he truly loves. My child and I are just burdens. Little did I know, elsewhere, Ethan was living through days of utter frenzy. He returned to an empty penthouse. I was nowhere to be found, only the warm milk now cold on the table. He couldn't reach me by phone, couldn't find me at my company. He was like a wounded beast, losing his usual control and calm for the first time in his life. He had people check all security cameras, searched through all my connections, but I had vanished without a trace. And of course, Kathy Lamb was always by his side during these times. "Ethan, don't worry so much," she gently advised while pouring him a glass of wine. "Perhaps she just wants some quiet time. After all, your marriage was only a contract. She's a strong woman, I'm sure nothing will happen." Every word she spoke was like dripping poison, subtly implying that I was an irresponsible wife, that my departure was inevitable. But Ethan's frantic search began to frighten Kathy. She was afraid that if he found me and learned about the baby, all her plans would collapse. A wicked thought sprouted in her mind. She couldn't allow that baby to be born. One afternoon, as I was walking home from the supermarket, a high-powered motorcycle suddenly sped towards me from behind. The roaring engine tore through the quiet air. Before I could even react, it crashed straight into me. The impact wasn't too strong, but enough to send me sprawling on the ground. The fall made my belly hit the road. An intense pain surged through me, even more terrifying than the car accident. Blood, I saw blood flowing from between my legs. "Help! Save my baby." I gasped in a panic, my vision blurring. The motorcycle rider merely glanced at me coldly, then revved the engine and sped away. Fortunately, passers-by quickly called an ambulance. Lying on the hospital bed, listening to the baby's faint heartbeat monitor, I felt my whole world crumble. The doctor said I had a threatened miscarriage, but fortunately, both the baby and I were not in life-threatening danger. I just needed to stay in the hospital for observation. Fear was replaced by a chilling rage. This was no accident. That motorcycle rider deliberately targeted me. Who would want to harm me and my baby? Only one name came to mind: Kathy Lamb. Only she had a reason to do this. But I had no proof, and even if I did, I couldn't do anything. I was just a weak, fleeing woman, and she was the childhood friend whom Ethan wholeheartedly trusted and loved. She must have known I was here, probably had someone investigate me and the pregnancy. That time I went for a prenatal checkup, I saw her taking her sister to the obstetrics department, the same one as me. She came over and taunted me. Even though I said it wasn't Ethan's child, she probably knew the truth and then orchestrated this accident to make me miscarry. But I wouldn't let her succeed. Meanwhile, my hospitalization had left a trail, and Ethan, who hadn't missed any clues, finally tracked me down. The next day, as I was preparing to be discharged to continue my escape, the hospital room door suddenly opened. Ethan stood there, visibly thinner and haggard, with stubble on his face and bloodshot eyes. He stared at me, then looked down at my noticeably swollen belly. His gaze shifted from astonishment to pain to indignation, and finally to an unconcealable tenderness. "Lulu," he called my name, his voice hoarse. "I finally found you." Ethan's appearance was like a bomb exploding in the small world I was trying to protect. "You found me." Just before he entered the room, he was stopped by my treating doctor. The middle-aged doctor looked him up and down, his gaze not very friendly. "Are you the husband of the patient in this room?" Ethan nodded, his heart clenching at the word patient. The doctor sighed, shaking his head. "As a husband, you should pay attention to your wife. She's pregnant, but her body is weak, and the fetus is smaller than its gestational age, showing signs of malnutrition. You should nourish both your wife and the baby, and don't let her worry too much." Every word from the doctor was like a hammer blow to Ethan's head. Fetal malnutrition. He stood frozen, pain, self-reproach, and fury intertwined. He pushed the door open and stepped in, carrying all those chaotic emotions. I looked at him, the haggard man before me, and my heart constricted, but pain and fear quickly overwhelmed everything else. He knows I'm pregnant now. What's next? Will he force me to abort it to clear the way for Kathy Lamb? "Why did you run from me?" His voice was hoarse, each word containing pain and restraint. He took slow steps towards me, his gaze fixed on my belly, an expression so complex I couldn't decipher it. I instinctively recoiled, pulling the blanket to cover my belly like a mother animal protecting her young. "What are you doing here?" I asked, my voice as cold as ice, trying to use distance to hide the tremor in my heart. "What am I doing here?" He gave a bitter laugh, a smile uglier than crying. "Lulu, you are my wife, you're pregnant with our child, you were in an accident and are in the hospital. You ask me what I'm doing here." He came closer, grasping my shoulders with such force it felt like he wanted to embed me into his very bones. "Tell me why you ran away, why you didn't answer your phone. Do you know how worried I was?" Worried? I almost wanted to laugh. Was he worried about me, or worried that this baby would affect him and Kathy Lamb? "Worried?" I sneered, looking straight into his eyes, my gaze full of mockery. "Mr. Shen, what are you worried about? Worried that I'll ruin things between you and Miss Lamb? Or worried that I'll use this baby to tie you down and prevent you from divorcing according to the contract? Don't worry about this baby." I looked down at my belly, then up at him, each word clear and cold. "It's not yours. This baby has nothing to do with you." Ethan's face turned ashen at my words. He stared at me, unblinking, profound hurt in his eyes. "What are you saying?" "What am I saying? Don't you understand?" I pushed his hand away, my heart aching as if cut by a knife, but my words came out even crueler. "You don't need to pretend to care anymore. I know everything. You knew who I was from the beginning, but you still used a contract to deal with me. You were afraid I'd cling to you, weren't you? You love Kathy. You want to be with her. Fine, I'll grant you both your wish." I saw astonishment, disbelief, and then excruciating pain in his eyes. He staggered back a step, as if unable to bear this blow. "You're lying," he whispered, shaking his head as if unable to believe it. "Lulu, don't lie to me." "I'm not lying," I screamed, tears now uncontrollable, streaming down. "This baby has nothing to do with you. Go away, I don't need your pity." Every word I uttered was a knife stabbing my own heart, but I had no other choice. I had to push him away, only then would my child be safe. Ethan stood frozen, as if turned to stone. He stared at me for a long time, seemingly trying to find a crack in my lie, but all he saw was fierce determination and despair. Finally, he turned, his back stiff and solitary. "Get some rest. I'll step out for a bit," he said, then walked out of the room, closing the door behind him. The moment the door closed, I felt all my strength leave me and collapsed onto the bed. But there was no time for sadness or despair. I had to act. I had only this one chance. He might be out to calm down, or he might be calling Kathy Lamb. I had to escape immediately. I shakily pulled out the IV needle, ignoring the lingering pain in my body. I dialed Anna's number. "Anna, help me. He found me. Come and get me quickly." Less than 10 minutes later, Anna was there. She helped me complete the discharge procedures as quickly as possible, then escorted me out of the hospital through the back exit. When Ethan returned to the hospital room with a bag of hot porridge in his hand, all he found was an empty room and a cold hospital bed. The milk he had bought for me was still on the table, but I was gone. He stood frozen in the middle of the room, a sense of helplessness and despair engulfing his entire body. But this time, alongside the pain, there was a bone-chilling rage. She lied. He knew she lied. Her eyes couldn't deceive him. That baby was his, and she ran not because she didn't love him, but because she was afraid. Who had scared her so much that she would abandon her own child? Who made her use the cruelest lie to push him away? The motorcycle rider. The accident was not simple at all. Ethan's eyes turned as cold as knives. He pulled out his phone and called his assistant. "Investigate for me. Investigate the motorcycle that caused the accident to my wife. Investigate all of Kathy Lamb's activities over the past period. I want results within 24 hours. He hung up, gripping the phone tightly, his knuckles white. He would find her at all costs, and this time, he wouldn't let anyone hurt her or their child again. He would make the mastermind behind all this pay the highest price. Ethan's fury was like a Category 12 hurricane, silent but capable of destroying everything. He didn't shout, didn't smash things. He just sat silently in his study, his bloodshot eyes turning a terrifying, cold black. The intelligence network of the Shen Group, which he used to dominate the business world, was, for the first time, fully mobilized just to uncover the truth for one woman. The results were delivered in less than 24 hours, even faster than his demand. The motorcycle rider was a thug with a criminal record, paid a large sum to teach a woman a lesson. The money was transferred through multiple dummy accounts, but the trail was ultimately traced directly to Kathy's trusted assistant. The report on Kathy herself was even more repulsive to Ethan. It was true they had met abroad, but the so-called childhood friends who weathered storms together was entirely a drama she had orchestrated herself. During his most difficult years, when he rebuilt his career from scratch, she was just one of many young women surrounding him, but the most brazen and cunning. She had skillfully created an image of a confidant in the eyes of his family and those around him, while in reality, he had never given her a chance. But the most damning evidence came from his own phone. He checked his call history. There was indeed a call from my number on that fateful afternoon. He had security camera footage from the penthouse checked. The tape clearly showed that at that time, he was in his study, in an online meeting, not showering at all. Kathy Lamb had arrived uninvited, and she herself had answered his phone, then casually placed it back. All the pieces fit together, forming a cruel and wicked picture of the truth. My fear, my desperate lie, my escape haul orchestrated by Kathy Lamb. That evening, Ethan arranged to meet Kathy Lamb at the very restaurant where he and I had had our blind date. Kathy Lamb walked in with a triumphant smile. She wore a striking red dress, convinced she had finally eliminated the thorn in her side. "Ethan, what did you want to see me about?" Ethan said nothing, simply pushed a tablet towards her. On the screen were images of the motorcycle rider being handcuffed by the police, flowcharts of money transfers, and security camera footage of her answering his phone. Kathy Lamb's smile froze, her beautiful face as white as paper. I don't know. You have to believe me," she stammered, starting her usual ploy, tears welling up, a pitiful expression on her face. "I did all this because I love you too much." "Love," Ethan spoke for the first time, his voice as cold as hell's ice. "Is your love so cheap that you would harm an unborn child? Not to mention, you already knew it was my child, yet you still staged this charade. You've got guts. It's fortunate that both mother and child are unharmed, otherwise I wouldn't care where your body ended up." He stood up, looking down at her with the gaze of a king observing an ant. "Kathy Lamb, I repeat, I have never loved you. My patience with you was merely out of respect for your family, but you have gone too far." He pulled out his phone and dialed a number. "Lawyer Zhang, I want to file a lawsuit against Kathy Lamb for attempted murder. Furthermore, notify all partners that Shen Group officially terminates all collaborations with Lamb Industries. I want them bankrupt within a week." With that, he hung up, not sparing another glance at the woman collapsing at his feet, and turned to leave. He had to go find his wife and child. This time, he wasn't searching blindly. He knew I was scared, in hiding. He reopened the investigation file on me, where all my relationships were recorded. His gaze stopped at the name Anna, my only close friend. He got Anna's address in the seaside town, but he didn't rush there. He knew that if he suddenly appeared, I would only be more frightened and would run away again. He had to prove to me that he wasn't the man I misunderstood. He was my Ethan. He drove all night to that peaceful seaside town. From a distance, he saw my familiar figure sitting by the window, my face pale but serene. His heart ached. He didn't approach. He just stood there silently and took out his phone. He didn't call, didn't send lengthy explanations. He just sent a message to my old phone number, the one he believed I would eventually turn back on. The message contained only one photo, a picture of the clumsy little wooden bird from all those years ago, resting peacefully in his palm. A few days later in the small apartment, I finally gathered enough courage to turn my old phone back on, intending to discard the SIM card forever. The screen lit up and a picture message appeared. I opened it. It was my wooden bird. The wooden bird I had dropped in the penthouse the night I discovered the truth. It was resting in his palm. My whole world stopped spinning. Why? Why did he keep it? Just then, Anna walked into the room, her expression extremely complex. "Lulu," she hesitated, "someone wants to see you." "I don't want to see anyone," I replied reflexively. "But this person," Anna took a deep breath. "He said he's the boy who promised to marry you under the phoenix tree all those years ago." Anna's words were like a key, unlocking the door to memories I had tried so hard to seal away. I stared blankly at the phone in my hand, then at Anna, my entire body trembling. My heart, which had turned cold, now beat wildly, pounding with both hope and fear. It was him, truly him. He had to use this identity to meet me. I don't know where I found the courage to nod. Anna breathed a sigh of relief and opened the door. Ethan walked in. He was no longer the cold, distant CEO, nor was he the haggard, enraged man from the hospital. He stood there in a simple white shirt, his deep eyes filled only with tenderness, sorrow, and a love so intense it almost burned me. He said nothing, just quietly walked over and sat down in front of me. He gently took the wooden bird from my hand, placing it next to another wooden bird he took from his jacket pocket. One clumsy and time-worn, one exquisite and perfect. They were like me and him, past and present different, yet undeniably belonging together. "Lulu," he began, his voice hoarse and laden with countless emotions. "It's me, your Ethan. I've been looking for you for 15 years. My tears could no longer be held back. They streamed down. "Why?" I sobbed. "Why didn't you tell me? Why did you need a contract?" He raised a hand and gently wiped away the hot tears on my cheek. "Because I was afraid," he said, his voice full of self-reproach. "After I found you, I saw you had become a strong, independent, and somewhat distant woman. I was afraid if I suddenly appeared as the boy from all those years ago, you'd think I was crazy, you'd be scared and run away. The contract was the only way I could think of to be with you legally, to have a reason to take care of you, to slowly make you accept me without feeling startled." He took my hand, squeezing it tight. "Every breakfast, every glass of milk, every pill I prepared for you wasn't out of responsibility. It was my affection. I wanted to make up for the years we spent apart, to love you as a grown man." "What about Kathy Lamb?" I asked, the biggest question in my heart. A flicker of coldness and disgust crossed his eyes. "Regarding Kathy Lamb, I was wrong not to deal with her decisively. I only saw her as an annoying acquaintance. My tolerance led to your misunderstanding. I apologize. Everything she did, from answering my phone to hiring someone to harm you, I've investigated it all. She and her family will pay the price for their actions." He looked deep into my eyes. The sincerity in his gaze made it impossible for me to doubt. "Lulu, from the moment I found you, every day spent with you, my feelings for you are no longer just responsibility for an old promise. I truly love you, love the Luna Liu of today, independent, strong, sometimes a little stubborn. I love everything about you." The truth was finally revealed. All my pain, torment, sleepless nights, and desperate escapes turned out to stem from a misunderstanding. If only I had been brave enough to ask him then, if only I had trusted him a little more. If only I hadn't made my own assumptions, tormenting myself, regret and pain surged within me. I had pushed the man I loved away with my own hands, I had tortured both of us. "I'm sorry," I choked out, tears silent. I'm sorry, Ethan. If only I had told you sooner. He pulled me into his arms, holding me tightly as if to embed me into his very being. The warm, steady embrace soothed all the wounds within me. It's not too late, he whispered in my ear, his voice firm. As long as you believe me now, as long as you give me a chance, can we start over? Me, you, and our child. I buried my face in his solid chest, nodding furiously. All misunderstandings were resolved, all pain relegated to the past. In this moment, only love and peace remained. 2 years later, at a seaside villa beneath a newly planted phoenix tree, a chubby little boy was toddling on the grass. Occasionally, he would tumble, but instead of crying, he'd giggle, extending his hands towards his parents. I sat in Ethan's lap, smiling as I watched our son. Kathy Lamb had received a fitting sentence for her crimes. Lamb Industries had also declared bankruptcy just a week later. Just as Ethan had said, all the storms had truly passed. Doesn't look more like you or me? I asked, resting my head on his shoulder. Ethan leaned down to kiss my hair, holding me tighter. His eyes are like yours, his nose like mine, but most importantly, he is the crystallization of our love. He looked at me, his eyes still holding the same tenderness and love as on the first day. The promise made by a 10-year-old boy all those years ago had finally been fulfilled by the love of a 28-year-old man. 15 years of waiting, 15 years of searching, enduring so many misunderstandings and heartaches, we had finally found each other. Not bound by a promise, but by the undeniable connection of two hearts truly meant for each other.